Jack Mercer woke to the sound of a sharp alarm echoing through the small ship. The sound cut through his half-sleep like a blade, making his heart pound. He blinked and sat up in the pilot's chair, his eyes going straight to the fuel gauge. On the control panel, it was flashing bright red, the needle pointing all the way to empty. A cold wave of dread rolled through him. They were drifting, no planet in sight, no station nearby, nothing but the endless black of space and the far-off shimmer of stars. The hum of the engines was gone, replaced by an eerie silence broken only by the faint creaks of metal in the corner of the cramped cockpit. Lyra stirred. She was small, with pale lavender skin and silver hair that glowed faintly under the dim lights. Her eyes, large and deep blue, slowly opened. "What happened?" she asked, her voice soft but edged with worry. Jack's jaw tightened. "We're out of fuel," he said. Lyra froze, then glanced at the view outside, the deep darkness stretching in every direction. Her expression changed, a flicker of something fear. Maybe guilt passed over her face. She didn't answer right away. Jack leaned back in his chair, rubbing his face. He had rescued her 3 days ago. Her freighter had been wrecked by an asteroid strike, floating dead in space, he had thought. She was just a survivor, scared and alone. Now, looking at her expression, he wasn't so sure. He opened the comms system and tried sending a distress beacon. The display blinked. Signal range weak. The nearest station was at least 2 jumps away, jumps they couldn't make without fuel. The only hope was that someone might pass close enough to pick up the signal. But deep space traffic was rare. The chances were slim. "We have rations for a few days," Jack said, trying to keep his voice steady. "But without power, heat, we'll fail in less than 12 hours. Lyra didn't seem to hear him. Her gaze was fixed on the scanner display. Jack followed her eyes and saw it, a faint green blip, far away, moving slowly toward them. "What is that?" he asked. Lyra's lips tightened. "Not friendly," she whispered. Jack frowned. "You know what it is?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Maybe. We should not answer it." Jack's hand hovered over the controls. Not answer? They were. Stranded, any ship could mean help, but her tone made the hair on his arms rise. The blip drew closer, its signal strange, fragmented, pulsing in an irregular pattern. Jack boosted the beacon's strength anyway. Better to take the chance, he muttered. Lyra gripped the armrest of her seat, her knuckles pale. "You don't understand," she said quietly. "Out here, there are worse things than empty fuel tanks." Jack didn't reply. He watched the scanner as the green blip came closer and closer. Suddenly, the ship's hull gave a faint metallic thunk. Both of them froze. Another thunk, louder this time. It came from outside. Jack unstrapped from the pilot's chair and moved toward the small viewport. At first, all he saw was the blackness of space and his own faint reflection. Then something moved. A shadow shifted along the edge of the glass. He stepped closer, his breath fogging the cold surface. Something was there, clinging to the outside of the ship. Lyra stood beside him now, her eyes wide, her skin almost white. "It found us," she breathed. "What is it?" Jack asked. Her answer was a whisper, barely more than a breath. "A scavenger." The thing outside was hard to make out clearly, but it seemed insect-like, with long jointed limbs and a body that shimmered like oil on water. It was moving slowly, tapping at the hull with one thin claw, as if testing it. Jack felt his chest tighten. The creature paused and turned its head, or what Jack thought might be its head, toward the cockpit. It had no visible eyes, but somehow he felt it was staring right at him. Lyra pulled him back from the window. "Don't move. Don't make any sound," she whispered. Her voice trembled in a way Jack had not heard before. The creature crawled along the side of the ship, disappearing from view. Jack tried to follow it on the scanner, but the blip was gone. "Where did it go?" he asked. Lyra shook her head. "It's still here," she said. "They can hide from scanners." A faint vibration ran through the floor. Something was moving over the hull. Jack grabbed a wrench from the tool kit. Useless maybe, but better than nothing. The lights flickered once, twice, then stabilized. Jack's pulse pounded in his ears. Lyra moved to the control panel, pressing a series of buttons. "Lock every hatch," she said. "Seal the maintenance ports." Jack did as she said, still trying to keep his breathing steady. The creature's tapping returned, this time from the rear of the ship. It was exploring, searching, and then, just as suddenly as it began, the noise stopped. The ship fell silent again. Jack and Lyra stood frozen, waiting for the next sound. Minutes passed, but nothing came. Jack finally spoke, his voice low. "Maybe it's gone." Lyra didn't look convinced. Her eyes stayed fixed on the blackness outside the window. "No," she whispered. "It's waiting." Far away on the scanner, another faint green blip appeared, and then another. They were moving toward the ship, slowly, deliberately. Jack felt his stomach drop. Whatever that thing was, it had friends. Asterisk. The green blips on the scanner moved slowly, but with purpose. Jack counted 3 now, all closing in from different angles, whatever they were. They weren't random travelers drifting by. They were coming for this ship. Lyra's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the scanner's sensitivity. Her voice was steady, but there was a shadow in it. "These are hunters," she said. "They follow the first scavenger's trail." Jack glanced toward the viewport. The blackness outside seemed thicker somehow, as if it was holding its breath. Flicked on the ship's external lights, a pale cone of illumination swept across the hull. At first, it showed nothing but the scratched metal of the starling's skin. Then, for a heartbeat, the light caught movement, a long limb curling back into the shadows. It was gone almost as soon as it appeared. Lyra stepped forward and slammed the light control back to off. "Don't make us a beacon," she warned, but Jack shook his head. "If they're already here, darkness won't save us." She didn't answer, her gaze still fixed on the scanner. The 3 blips had split apart. Circling, then came the sound, a hollow metallic scrape. It moved from one side of the ship to the other. Jack gripped the wrench tighter. The scraping stopped, replaced by a faint series of taps, slow, deliberate, like someone knocking at a door they already owned. Lyra turned to Jack, her voice almost too soft to hear. "They test for weak points," she said. "Once they find one, they don't leave." Jack swallowed. "We need to do something before they get inside." He checked the power reserves. If he rerouted what little they had left, maybe he could trigger a short engine burst enough to shake them off, but it would drain the emergency systems. A sudden clunk made both of them turn, from the small side window. Jack saw it. One of the scavengers clinging to the hull. It was larger than he had imagined, with a body like a twisted crab, limbs jointed, in ways that made his eyes ache to follow. Its surface shifted colors, almost blending into the metal beneath it. Jack froze as the creature's head tilted. No eyes, but he felt its attention. The tapping stopped, and the thing pressed something flat and black against the hull. A faint vibration hummed through the ship. Lyra's eyes widened. "It's marking us," she said. "They can track this mark anywhere." The second blip on the scanner was nearly on top of them now. Jack's chest tightened. He could almost imagine the other one crawling up behind the cockpit. Unseen, Lyra reached into the small storage compartment under her seat and pulled out something wrapped in dark cloth. She hesitated before unwrapping it. Inside was a crystal deep violet, glowing faintly. It pulsed like a heartbeat, casting soft light across her silver hair. Jack stared at it. "What is that?" "Something they want more than us," she said. "If we throw it far enough, maybe they'll follow." Jack hesitated. "Or maybe they'll tear the ship apart to get it." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "That too." The third blip appeared closer now. They were surrounded. The tapping started again, this time from multiple points at once. The sound echoed through the hull like a cold countdown. Lyra clutched the crystal, her knuckles white. "Jack," she said quietly, "if they breach the hull, don't try to fight. Just run for the escape pod." Jack gave her a sharp look. "And leave you here?" "Not happening." Before she could answer, the cockpit lights flickered again. A new sound joined the tapping. A slow, heavy thud. Something was moving on the roof of the ship. Something big. Lyra's eyes darted to the scanner. The green blips had stopped moving. They found their way in, she whispered. Jack's breath caught. In where? She met his eyes, her voice barely a whisper. Inside the hull. The sound inside the hull was different now. It wasn't the hollow echo of claws on metal. It was softer, closer, almost like something dragging itself slowly through the narrow maintenance shafts. Jack's grip on the wrench tightened until his knuckles ached. Lyra moved carefully to the wall panel beside the cockpit door. She tapped a few controls, her face pale in the glow of the screen. They're inside the outer crawl space, she said. They can move between the walls like insects. Jack's stomach churned. How do you even know that? She didn't answer, which told him more than words could. The lights dimmed again. A faint shadow rippled across the ceiling. Jack's eyes followed it to the corner of the cockpit where a small ventilation grate sat. The screws on the grate turned slowly, one by one. Neither of them moved. The grate slid open with a soft metallic click. Something emerged. Its body was thin, jointed, and too long for the space it crawled from. Its surface shifted colors, blending almost perfectly with the walls. The head was narrow, with no mouth that Jack could see, but two slits on the side. Pulsed faintly as if breathing. The thing froze halfway through the opening, and then it turned toward them. Jack felt the same sensation he had outside the viewport, the weight of an unseen gaze pressing down on him. Lyra took a slow step back. The creature moved the rest of the way out, unfolding itself until it stood almost as tall as the cockpit ceiling. Its limbs were sharp at the ends, not quite claws, but not harmless either. Jack's instinct screamed at him to swing the wrench, but something about the way it moved stopped him. It wasn't charging, it was studying them, the faint pulsing. In its side slits quickened. Lyra spoke first, her voice trembling but steady enough to carry. "We have nothing for you," she said. The creature tilted its head. A strange clicking sound coming from somewhere deep inside its body. It took a slow step forward. Jack shifted his stance, ready to defend. But instead of attacking, the thing extended one of its long limbs and pointed directly at Lyra. Then it made another click, sharper this time, almost like a signal. From somewhere farther back in the ship, another sound answered. Jack's eyes darted to the scanner. The three green blips were gone, replaced by a cluster of smaller, faster-moving dots. "They're inside too," he muttered. Lyra's face went even paler. "This is not just scavenging," she said quietly. "They're here for me." The creature stepped closer to Lyra, ignoring Jack entirely. Its claw-like limb hovered near her face, the tip glowing faintly with a pale blue light. Jack took a step forward, raising the wrench. The thing's head snapped toward him, the slits in its sides flaring open. A sudden, high-pitched hum filled the air, making his teeth ache. Jack froze, the sound drilling into his skull. Lyra spoke quickly. "Don't fight it." Her voice was urgent now. "If you fight, they'll kill us both." The creature lowered its limb and made one final click before turning toward the vent it had emerged from. With impossible speed, it folded itself back inside and vanished into the darkness. For a moment, there was silence. Jack's breathing was ragged. Lyra leaned against the wall, her hand clutching the glowing violet crystal hidden in her pocket. "They'll come back," she said, "but next time. They won't come alone." The words barely left her mouth when the ship's emergency lights flared red. A new signal flashed on the scanner larger than any of the blips before. It was coming straight toward them, and it was moving fast. Asterisk. Red emergency lights pulsed in the cramped cockpit. Every flash painted Jack's face in sharp shadows. The incoming signal on the scanner was massive, easily 10 times the size of their ship. It moved like a predator closing in on trapped prey. Lyra's eyes didn't leave the scanner, her lips pressed into a thin line. "They've called their carrier," she said quietly. Jack stared at her. "They're what?" "The mothership," she replied. "It's where they store what they take." "And who they take?" Jack's stomach twisted. His mind raced through options. None were good. They had no fuel, no weapons strong enough, and nowhere to hide. He glanced at Lyra. She was holding the crystal now, the violet light pulsing against her skin like it was alive. "That thing," he said, pointing at it. "That's what they're here for, isn't it?" Lyra nodded slowly. "It's an energy core. Not just any core. It's from the heart of my people's sun engine." Her voice dropped lower. "It can power a city for years. Or destroy one in minutes." Jack ran a hand through his hair. "Then give it to them, and maybe they'll leave us alone." Lyra shook her head sharply. "If they take it, they'll burn entire worlds to ash. They won't stop at us." She held the crystal closer to her chest, as if afraid the walls themselves might steal it. The sound came again, metal bending. A long scrape that rattled the frame of the Starling. Jack moved to the control panel, checking the outer cameras. One of the scavengers was clamped to the cargo hatch, its limbs cutting into the seal. Another was crawling along the underside of the ship, planting black discs against the hull. "They're marking cut points," Lyra said grimly. "When they're ready, they'll slice the ship open like fruit." Jack turned to her. "Then tell me you have an idea, because I'm running out of them." Lyra hesitated, then spoke quickly. "We can use the crystal, not to give to them, but to bait them." Her plan spilled out. They would launch the crystal in an escape pod. The scavengers would chase it, and in that short window, Jack could use the pod's beacon as a decoy signal, making it look like the Starling was somewhere else. It was risky, and it meant losing the crystal forever. Jack thought about it. Losing the crystal might mean losing whatever mission Lyra had been on. But keeping it meant dying here in a ship slowly being peeled open by alien claws. The scraping grew louder, more impatient. They were almost through. Finally, Jack nodded. "We do it." Lyra's hands moved quickly, sliding the crystal into the pod's compartment. The violet light glowed brighter, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Jack powered up the pod's launch system, the hum of the old machinery filling the air. Then, without warning, the ship shook violently. Jack was thrown against the console. Through the side viewport, he saw it, the massive shape of the carrier sliding into view, blocking out the stars. It was a nightmare of jagged metal and shifting panels. Like a living machine, rows of glowing slits lined its side, each one opening and closing slowly, as if the ship itself was breathing. Lyra's voice was tight, urgent. "Jack, now!" He hit the launch control. The escape pod shot away from the Starling, carrying the crystal into the darkness. For a moment, it seemed to work. Several of the green blips on the scanner broke away, chasing after it. But then, a new reading appeared. From the carrier's side, a long, spined appendage extended. It reached out, impossibly fast, and caught the pod mid-flight. The pod's beacon went dead. The scavengers stopped moving. As if waiting, Lyra stared at the scanner, her face drained of color. "They know it's bait," she whispered. Jack's heart pounded. The carrier was still moving closer, its shadow swallowing the Starling whole. The shadow of the carrier swallowed the Starling until the cockpit windows showed nothing but jagged metal and flickering alien lights. Every creak of the hull sounded louder now, as if the ship itself knew it was in the grip of something far stronger. Jack's fingers hovered over the controls, but there was nowhere to run, no speed to escape with. The pod was gone, the crystal stolen, and the scavengers were still here. Lyra sat in the co-pilot's chair, her silver hair dim in the red light. Her eyes were fixed on the alien vessel outside. "They won't just take the core," she said, her voice low. "They'll take us too." Jack gave a grim smile. "Not if I can help it." Before she could respond, the hull groaned and shuddered. A sharp, metallic shriek echoed through the ship as one of the black discs on the cargo hatch began to glow. The heat readings on the console spiked. Something was cutting through the metal. Jack gritted his teeth. "They're coming in." Lyra stood, moving toward the engineering bay. "What are you doing?" Jack called. "Giving us one last chance," she said, disappearing into the narrow corridor. Jack hesitated, then followed. The engineering bay was small, a mess of cables and worn panels. Lyra was pulling a panel open, revealing a core socket. Deep inside, she looked up at him, her expression hard. "The crystal was the safest power source we had," she said. "Without it, there's only one thing left that might get us out of here." Jack frowned. "The backup cell?" She shook her head. "No, the reactor overload." The words hit him like cold water. "That's suicide," he said. Lyra's hands didn't stop moving. "Not if we time it right." She explained, "Overload the reactor, create a burst of raw energy powerful enough to shove the ship forward and blind their sensors. If they didn't die instantly from the surge, they might have just enough momentum to drift into the dark, uncharted zone ahead." Jack stared at her. "You've done this before?" She gave a faint, bitter smile. "No, but I've seen it done." Another loud crash shook the Starling. A panel in the corridor bursting inward as one of the scavengers forced a limb inside. Jack didn't think anymore. He just started helping. The two of them worked in silence, the sound of claws scraping metal growing louder every minute. Sweat dripped down Jack's face as he rerouted the last power conduits. Lyra stood at the reactor control, her finger hovering over the manual override. Her voice was steady. "When I hit this, you run to the cockpit and steer for the black. Don't stop for anything." Jack's eyes met hers. "We both make it, or neither of us does." Before she could answer, the hatch to the engineering bay exploded inward. A scavenger forced its way inside, its limbs unfolding like knives. The slits on its sides flared. With a pale light, it let out a sound like metal tearing in half. Jack grabbed a loose cable and swung it at the creature, sparks bursting where it connected. Lyra slammed her hand down on the override. The ship's lights blazed white, a deep hum building beneath their feet. Jack felt the air grow hot, the walls trembling. "Go!" Lyra shouted, shoving him toward the corridor. He stumbled into the cockpit just as the reactor roared. The forward thrusters fired in a violent burst, throwing him against the seat. The scavenger in the engineering bay screeched, the sound cutting off as the sudden surge threw it backward into the wall, outside. The carrier's sensors flared with static as the Starling lurched forward. The alien ship's massive frame began to fade in the rear cameras. Ahead lay nothing but the pitch-black stretch of uncharted space. Jack's knuckles turned white on the controls. Behind him, Lyra staggered into the cockpit, her breathing heavy. "They won't follow us in there," she said, her voice shaking. "They can't see in the black." Jack glanced at her. "And what's in the black?" She sank into the seat, her eyes never leaving the darkness ahead. "Things worse than scavengers," she whispered. The black zone swallowed the Starling whole. It was not like drifting into empty space. This darkness felt heavier, thicker, as if it was pressing against the hull. The ship's lights seemed weaker here, their glow fading only a few meters before being eaten by the void. Jack kept his eyes on the controls, but the readings were almost useless. Sensors were blind. Comms were dead, and even the navigation system showed nothing but static. Behind them, the scavengers had vanished from the scanner. Either they had stopped chasing, or they were hiding in the dark. Lyra sat in the co-pilot's chair, clutching her side. Her skin looked paler than before, her breathing shallow. Jack frowned. "You're hurt." She shook her head. "Not hurt reactor. Radiation." The overload had taken its toll on her faster than it did on him. Jack's jaw tightened. "We'll get you help." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "If we live long enough." A low vibration rolled through the hull. It wasn't the engines. It was something outside, moving with slow, deliberate weight. Jack glanced at Lyra, but she was already looking toward the viewport. At first, he saw nothing but black then. Faintly, a shimmer like moonlight on still water slid across the darkness. It was massive, moving in a curve around them. No readings appeared on the scanner, but Jack didn't need them. He could feel it, whatever it was. It was alive. Lyra's voice was almost a whisper. "A watcher," Jack frowned. "What's a watcher?" "They live in the black," she said. "They don't chase. They wait." Her eyes stayed fixed on the faint glimmer outside. If it decides we are not welcome, it won't attack like scavengers. It will erase us. The shimmer faded, again, disappearing into the dark. For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the ship. Jack eased the thrusters forward, trying to move without drawing attention. The moment they gained a little speed, alarms flared on the console. The reactor heat was rising again too fast. Jack cursed under his breath. The overload had damaged the containment systems. If the reactor core reached critical levels now, it wouldn't be controlled. It would just blow. Lyra forced herself up from the chair, her hands moving over the console. "We can't shut it down," she said, "but we can use it again one." "Last jump," Jack shook his head. "We don't have coordinates." Her gaze was steady. "Anywhere but here." The vibration through the hull returned, louder this time. A faint glow spread through the black, outlining a massive curved shape. Just beyond the ship, it was like staring at the side of a living wall. Jack's throat felt dry. The Watcher was closer now. Its outline shifted, revealing what looked like hundreds of faintly glowing Mark's eyes. Maybe they opened and closed slowly, as if studying the starling. Lyra's hands hovered over the controls. "When I ignite, the core will be blind for a few seconds. Hold course, no matter what you see or hear." Jack's fingers tightened on the controls. "What I hear." Her answer was quick. The black talks back. The vibration in the hull turned into a deep, resonating hum. Outside, the Watcher's glow brightened, its size overwhelming the viewport. Jack's pulse pounded in his ears. Lyra hit the ignition. The core roared, flooding the ship with blinding white light. The starling lurched forward, the hum of the Watcher vanishing in an instant. For a moment, Jack felt weightless, soundless. Then the light outside shifted. Stars reappeared, distant but real. They were out of the black. Jack exhaled, but Lyra didn't speak. When he turned to her, she was slumped in the chair, her eyes closed. Her skin was colder now, her breathing faint. She had taken the full brunt of the reactor surge to guide them through. The sudden reappearance of stars felt almost unreal. After the crushing weight of the black zone, the open void looked too wide, too fragile. Jack sat in the pilot's chair, breathing hard, his hands still locked on the controls. Beside him, Lyra lay slumped, her silver hair tangled, her breathing shallow. "Stay with me," Jack muttered, adjusting the life support flow. The ship's systems were battered, most readouts flickering or offline, but the engines still hummed weakly. They were alive, at least for now. Jack's eyes moved to the scanner. It showed no scavenger blips, no Watcher signatures, just one faint reading ahead. A massive structure floated in the emptiness. It wasn't like any station or ship he'd seen before. It was shaped like a great ring, slowly rotating, its surface lined with towers that glowed with a pale, shifting light. Lyra stirred slightly, her eyes fluttering open. When she saw the ring, her expression changed from exhaustion to something else, fear mixed with recognition. "No," she whispered. "Not here." Jack looked at her. "You know this place?" She nodded slowly. "It's a gateway." The word hung in the air. Jack glanced back at the viewport. The ring was growing larger as they drifted closer. Its center was filled with a swirling haze of blue and white light. It looked almost beautiful, until a low, deep sound rumbled through the comms. It wasn't static, it was a voice. "You have crossed the boundary," the voice said, slow and heavy. "You carry what was never yours." Jack's eyes darted to Lyra. "They're talking about the crystal," he said, her lips pressed tightly. "They don't know it's gone." The light in the center of the ring flared. From the glow, a shadow began to form, tall, humanoid, but shifting as if made from smoke. The voice came again, deeper this time. "The core will be returned, or your journey ends here." Jack's hands tightened on the controls. He had nothing to give them, no way to fight, and no guarantee they wouldn't destroy the starling anyway. The shadow moved closer, its form stretching until it filled the entire center of the ring. For the first time since they'd escaped the scavengers, Jack felt something colder than fear. Lyra's voice was quiet but firm. "Jack, whatever happens, don't let them take me." Before he could answer, the light outside flared to blinding white, and the starling was pulled toward the ring.